effort, a fight that continues today. That is tonight's Readout. All In with Chris Hayes starts right now.
Tonight on All In.
I urge my colleagues to look at that image and tell me what message you think it sends.
History in the House of Representatives.
This is about whether it is okay to encourage the murder of the Speaker of the House.
Tonight, the bipartisan vote to sanction a Republican member for extremist remarks and espousing violence and what it means for the country going forward. Then, House managers call Donald Trump to testify, but will the impeached ex-president's attorneys cancel his testimony? Plus, what we learned at the first hearing on domestic terror in the wake of the Capitol attack, and my exclusive interview with Senator Elizabeth Warren on the fast start from the Biden administration and her push to keep it going. What All In starts right now. Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Just over an hour ago, the House of Representatives voted to strip Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of her committee assignments. Now, this is an extremely rare occurrence. In fact, it might be unprecedented in history. We can't quite tell, but it looks like we can't find an actual precedent for this. In all the recent instances when all this has happened, when members were removed from committees by their own parties, it happened because the party removed them instead of the entire House. But the threat of removal from the whole House did not stop Congresswoman Greene from the racist and violent conspiracy theories that got her into this situation in the first place. Just yesterday, she was throwing around conspiracy theories like Democratic members marry their own brothers. Today, Greene came forward to do what I would characterize as the minimal amount of performance necessary to give fellow Republicans the excuse to vote on her behalf. She put forth a rambling diatribe of lies and false equivalencies and half-truths that included the incredible bit of rhetoric from the well of the House, and I quote her here. I also want to tell you that 9/11 absolutely happened. Thank you for that, Congresswoman. I'm so glad we could confirm that. She lied about the things she said and supported and when she said them during that rambling diatribe. She did not address or apologize for the most problematic stuff, her violent rhetoric, including saying multiple times on video that Speaker Nancy Pelosi could be executed for treason. All but 11 Republicans voted to support Greene, which is more defections than I think anyone expected, but still a pretty good example of the one thing that unifies the other 199 members of the House Republican Party. All they have is being against the libs. When you get past that, there are all sorts of divisions inside that party, as seen, for instance, by 61 people in a secret ballot trying to unseat a member of leadership for the audacity of voting to impeach a president who summoned an insurrectionist mob to attack where they all were. You have a caucus where the majority, remember, voted to overturn a Democratic election. There are all sorts of divisions inside the party with the Marjorie Taylor anti-democracy wing. The one thing that could unify them is opposition to liberalism in the Democratic Party. That is what it's all about for them. The problem is that's all built on a foundation of sand. What does the Republican Party stand for besides making sure the libs don't control things? On the other hand, just a few months ago, in the wake of the election, it was the Democratic Party that looked like a very fractured coalition. Do you remember that? They were expecting big pickups in the House, and they lost a bunch of seats. There were immediate recriminations, internal debates about the source of those losses, with frontline members in swing districts blaming progressive members for defund the police rhetoric in the wake of the George Floyd protests. There was frustration that some Senate candidates who raised a ton of money did not perform better. 3 months later, Democrats have a House majority, actually managed to win the Senate with those improbable runoff wins in Georgia, and they have everyone from the most progressive member to the most conservative member united around an agenda of the big first item of the Biden presidency, a COVID relief package that is a price tag more than twice Obama's Recovery Act and has buy-in from everyone from Joe Manchin to Bernie Sanders. It is really quite a turnabout from where things looked like they were headed just a few months ago. And today, House Democrats spoke out in unity to condemn a woman whose past views are so delusional and so dangerous.
I did not hear an apology or a denouncement for the claim, the insinuation that political opponents should be violently dealt with. I didn't hear anybody apologize or retract the anti-Semitic and Islamophobic remarks that have been made, that have been posted over and over and over again.
In today's Republican Party, Marjorie Taylor Greene's worldviews are violent, anti-black, racist, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, and they're condoned. Every single day that goes by without outright condemnation from every single one of her Republican colleagues, without consequences for her extremist views, is an outright endorsement of white supremacy.
This is not about one member. This is about who we are as a body and what we are as a democracy. This is about whether it is acceptable to cheer on and encourage an insurrection against our basic democratic process. This is about whether it is okay to demand members swear in on a Bible of a religion they do not practice. This is about whether it is okay to hold an assault rifle next to members' heads in a campaign ad and incite death threats against them.
I cannot sit idly by and allow white supremacy and hatred to have decision-making power over our students' futures. To my Republican colleagues, let history remember what you did in this moment. A prerequisite for appointment to these committees and for all that we do must be that you love and represent all people, meaning all people.
I stand here to tell you I will stand up to bullies. Bullies who threaten students and threaten and celebrate the violence towards our speaker and our colleagues. Today, and yes, as a conscience of the Congress, it is important that we take this step to affirm that conspiracy theories and outrageous lies have no place in the Congress, no place in the people's house, no place, no place.
No parent should ever have to invite a member of Congress to visit their child's grave or touch the bullet-ridden clothing that their child wore to prove that their death actually happened. Mr. Speaker, the Speaker of this House always tells members to vote our district. Today, I vote as an act of conscience in defense of my district. I vote for the babies who left for school 8 years ago and never returned home, and the teachers who died trying to protect them.
House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer closed the Democrats' remarks with an impassioned speech appealing to the decency of his Republican colleagues.
The conduct we are judging today continued to occur even after Representative Greene became a candidate and even after she was elected. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to look at this image. And they're not the squad. They're Elon. They're Alexandria. And they're Rashida. They are people. They are our colleagues. The squad's worst nightmare. Yes, some people are having nightmares and fear. And some people who wanted to give other people nightmares committed sedition and broke into the House of Representatives and tried to stop us electing a president of the United States.
That woman there holding the gun is the woman 199 House Republicans voted to support, and a unified Democratic Party, along with 11 Republicans, stripped her of her power. I'm joined now by one of the Democrats you heard there on the House floor, Democratic Congresswoman Jahana Hayes of Connecticut, who serves on the House Education Labor Committee and represents the Newtown community where the Sandy Hook Elementary School mass shooting took place. Congresswoman, it seemed extremely emotionally fraught and intense in that House chamber today. What was it like in there?
It was incredibly emotional for me. I was thinking about my constituents and the people back at home, because as you can imagine, this is deeply personal for the people in Connecticut, for the people in Newtown. And just to hear my Republican colleagues come up with a string of whataboutisms and excuses for why, never saying she should be placed on a committee, but deflecting to so many different arguments, was incredibly emotional on the floor today.
You know, it struck me as I watched this today that part of what was happening, and I'd like to hear your response to this, is that the House hasn't grappled with what happened on January 6th in any formal way. The fact that a majority of Republicans voted to overturn a Democratic election, the fact that a mob of violent insurrectionists invaded the place that you work, threatening the lives of people that you work with. There hasn't been any institutional processing of that. And it felt to me today like this vote on Marjorie Taylor Greene was standing in as a kind of proxy for that.
I would say I agree with you. You're absolutely right, because I myself am still processing the events of January 6th, and this wound is reopened over and over and over again. While I heard people talk about the merits of the election or the events of January 6th, the fact that violent words incited the actions of January 6th, all of this really is playing in the back of members' minds as we attempt to legislate. And you saw, rightfully so, the impacts of that play out on the floor. I do not know if the turnout today would have been different had members not had in their recent memory just the final result of insightful words.
Final question for you is the precedent this sets. It is true that this is, we don't know if it's been done before, but as far as we can tell, this is new and unprecedented. It is also true that when Republicans say, you know, you're setting a precedent here and watch out in the future, what is your response to that?
I think it's a more dangerous precedent to let members' violent rhetoric and their hateful words go unchecked. I think that's the dangerous precedent that was set. I don't think that this has happened before, but I led a letter, and within a couple hours, I had 130 of my colleagues who signed on to say that she should not be seated on committees. I think the fact that the Republican leader placed her on the Committee of Education and Labor was just an insult to many of my colleagues. I can tell you there were Democrats who had issue with this, who struggled, who did not want to disrupt proper procedure or protocol. But for the fact that the Republicans refused to act and placed her on the Committee of Education and Labor, every parent, every teacher, every community member, every person who is still reeling from the fact that we have a problem with mass shootings in our country, specifically on school grounds, and we need to address those problems, I think was the impetus that led many of my colleagues, both Republican and Democrat, to say enough.
Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, representative from Connecticut, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Now, for more on the state of the GOP, I want to bring in Matthew Dowd, who is chief strategist for the Bush-Cheney 2004 presidential campaign. Matthew, I think my over-under on Republican votes today was probably about 5. I was actually sort of surprised that there were 11 votes. What was your reaction?
I wasn't that surprised. I thought it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 10. It ended up at 11. I mean, obviously, the story isn't the 10 or 11 or the 11 that stood for principle. It's the 199 that didn't, and who basically welcomed a 21st century political typhoid Mary into their midst, being a carrier of disease that's infected the entire Republican Party for a lengthy period of time. It's not just, I think one of the things, Chris, we don't focus on enough is what's behind all this, and what is the original sin of all of this that has led us here. It's not a denial of the school shootings. It's not a denial that Joe Biden won. It's not a denial that 9/11 happened. It's a denial of words in our original document, which that it was self-evident truth that all men are created equal. That's what's led us here, because we've never dealt with that disease in our country.
You know, there was a vote today that was a public vote, right, in which you have 199 members of the Republican Party voting to keep Marjorie Taylor Greene on her committees, 11 dissenting. Yesterday, you had another vote about sort of exile, right? It was about Liz Cheney, I think, who's number 3 in leadership, whether she'd be kicked off leadership. That was a secret ballot. You had 61 Republicans that wanted to kick her off for the sin of voting to impeach the president. And what I found striking about that is so much of the interpretation of House Republicans and Republicans in general is about the political calculations they're making. They don't want to get crosswise of Donald Trump, et cetera. This was a secret ballot. I think people need to take seriously the real beliefs of the members of the Republican Party and caucus as driving much of this.
This is not about Donald Trump. Everybody, I mean, so many people talk about the fear of Donald Trump. The Republican leaders and the Republican elected officials Donald Trump's a proxy, and Donald Trump's a proxy for the 80% or 85% of the Republican Party that believes, by and large, what Marjorie Taylor Greene believes. They believe that. And so the fear is a Republican primary voter who's much more aligned with Marjorie Taylor Greene than they are with Liz Cheney. That's the fear. And I think that's the problem in America today. We have a major party that is supported by millions of Americans, not a majority, but millions of Americans who have this same set of beliefs. So you can get rid of Donald Trump, cast him out as a pariah, put him down in Florida. It doesn't solve the fundamental problem in America today, because a smarter, more competent version of Donald Trump will arise and be more dangerous. That's hard to believe, be more dangerous to the country.
I guess what the question is, what does solve it, right? I mean, some kind of gatekeeping, some kind of have the factional fight out, have it out, is the only solution, I think. I mean, again, I'm looking at this from an outsider, but that's what it looks like to me.
I mean, I think there's many different small things we can do, but I think ultimately we have to deal with what's really behind this, which is we never held the people who wanted slavery accountable and responsible, and we never told the truth in the aftermath. And when Reconstruction failed, by and large, because Abraham Lincoln was killed, when Reconstruction failed, it led to more than 100 years where we finally got to Civil Rights and Voting Act. And you can draw a straight line, as I've said before, you can draw a straight line between the failure of Reconstruction and the inability to tell the truth about our country, all the way through Emmett Till and Medgar Evers and Martin Luther King, all the way up to Heather Heyer, and all the way up to police shootings that are unjustified. And so that, to me, is the truth Americans finally have to face. That's going to resolve our problems. When we finally face the truth, there is a segment of the population that does not believe all men and women in America are created equal. That's the fundamental problem.
All right, Matthew Dowd, speaking my language with the Reconstruction riff. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Impeachment managers publicly call their first witness, Donald J. Trump. Will we see the impeached former president testify at his own trial? That's next.
I think the sketchy website I bought this turtle from stole all my info.
Ooh. Have you looked on the bright side?
Discover never holds you responsible for unauthorized purchases on your card. That's my turtle.
Fraud protection. Discover something brighter.
Hey, can you adjust my strap? Girl, you need Lively. Front adjusters.
Mom, you need Lively.
Rollable, no-wire bras.
Babe, you need Lively.
J-hooks. It's not just a bra, it's a movement. All style, all comfort, all bras for $35 at wearlively.com.
I'm Mariceli, and I am a real Premier Protein fan. The taste of Premier Protein helps me not feel deprived from sweets. I love it.
With 30 grams of protein, 160 calories, and just 1 gram of sugar, Premier Protein. Too good to be good.
And then what happened, Daddy?
Well, you see here? There's a photo of you. There's a photo of your mommy. And then there's a picture of me. But before our story, it goes way, way, way back with our great, great, great grandparents. See this handsome man? His name is William. And William fell in love with Rose, and they had a kid. His name is Charles. And Charles met Martha. Isn't she pretty? Yeah.
Your mission. Stand up to moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis and take it on with Rinvoq. Rinvoq, a once-daily pill, can dramatically improve symptoms. Rinvoq helps tame pain, stiffness, swelling, and for some, Rinvoq can even significantly reduce RA fatigue. That's Rinvoq relief. With RA, your overactive immune system attacks your joints. Rinvoq regulates it to help stop the attack.
Rinvoq can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious infections and blood clots, sometimes fatal, have occurred, as have certain cancers, including lymphoma, and tears in the stomach or intestines, and changes in lab results. Your doctor should monitor your blood work. Tell your doctor about any infections, and if you are or may become pregnant while taking Rinvoq.
Take on RA. Talk to your rheumatologist about Rinvoq relief. Rinvoq. Make it your mission. If you can't afford your medicine, AbbVie may be able to help.
You might be thinking, wow, how does she get it all done? So, what's my secret? I bought a Nectar. Nectar mattresses are designed to cradle the body's pressure points, which helps to provide relief from daily stressors.
Mom, I was so comfy.
Plus, your Nectar mattress offers the coolest sleep you've ever had, even if you're sleeping next to a human furnace, like me.
And with our limited time President's Day sale, you can get up to $399 worth of accessories with your purchase.
We're excited to do business with you, but before we sign, I gotta ask.
Sure, anything.
We searched you online, and maybe you can explain this?
Can't believe that garbage is still coming in. That is so false.
Frustrated with your online search results? Call Reputation Defender today to join tens of thousands who've improved their online reputation. Get your free reputation report at BrandDefender.com or call 1-877-866-8555.
The second impeachment trial of Donald Trump starts early next week, and so far the only witness that has been called publicly is Donald Trump himself, and he is not complying. Earlier today, lead impeachment manager Jamie Raskin sent Trump a letter. 2 days ago, you filed an answer in which you denied many factual allegations set forth in the article of impeachment. You have thus attempted to put critical facts at issue, notwithstanding the clear and overwhelming evidence of your constitutional offense. In light of your disputing these factual allegations, provide testimony under oath, either before or during the Senate impeachment trial concerning your conduct on January 6, 2021. Trump has denied that he lied when he repeatedly attacked the legitimacy of the election and also asserted that he did not attempt to subvert the certification of the election results. Now, the House did not call any witnesses when it quickly impeached Trump for inspiring the insurrection, but the impeachment managers do want the defendant to testify in the trial. Just hours after this, they made that request. Trump's lawyer, Bruce Castor, told NBC News Trump will not testify and called the request a publicity stunt. I'm joined now by Dan Goldman, who served as lead counsel in the first House impeachment inquiry into Trump. Dan, what's your reaction to this exchange?
I think it's a very smart strategic move by the House managers, and I'll tell you why. I don't think Donald Trump will be subpoenaed. He would not have been subpoenaed at all. No president has ever been subpoenaed while acting as president. And I think the same issues, the separation of powers issues, would probably still apply to someone who was so recently in office. So I don't think that would happen. I think it also would be litigated forever. So I do not believe the managers of the Senate will vote to subpoena Donald Trump. But what this does is it gives him an opportunity to say his side of the story under oath, as any witness would. And the biggest issue is for the defense and for Trump is it's going to kind of hamstring his lawyers from arguing what Trump's state of mind was, what his intent was, what he knew about, because Trump himself was given the opportunity to testify and he did not take it. His lawyers can then not just cherry pick whatever they want to say about what Trump felt at the time. That is the ultimate hearsay. It's not permissible in any court in any land. And so it's a very smart strategic move, given that I do not think they will subpoena him. And ultimately, he won't testify. This is really to hem in the Trump's lawyers and what their arguments can be.
I hadn't thought of that, but that's a great point, right? I mean, so much of this, right, will revolve around, I mean, there's the president's actions, and then there are words, and then there's some of the state of mind. I mean, when he's sitting there at the TV watching an unprecedented assault by Americans on their seat of government to violently prevent the transfer of power, and he is desperately being reached out to by Republicans and Democrats alike to call it off. Like, what's going through your head there, dude? You liking it? You just watching it? That's very much an issue with respect to the article of impeachment, right?
Yeah, and the better example, I think, would be for his lawyers to get up and say, Donald Trump had no idea that this violent attack was planned. He never expected it. When he said peacefully, that's what he thought was going to happen. He had no idea. That's not permissible for a lawyer to just argue about their client. That's not evidence. The evidence would have to come from the client. And so by giving him the opportunity to do that, they can't argue as they would be able to, well, you didn't give us a chance to make a presentation in the House before you impeached, unlike every other former president, and then you didn't give us a chance here, so this is the only way we have to do it.
Trump's lawyer has basically said that the president won't testify, that the focus will be constitutional, right? So it'll be a sort of constitutional argument that you can't even do this, that they're not going to litigate the election fraud. Had been reporting earlier that Trump wanted that. What do you think about the broader issue of witnesses and the duration of this undertaking?
Well, I've been saying that I think even though in the ordinary circumstance, the House impeachment managers would want witnesses, the Democratic senators would certainly want witnesses. I think under the circumstances where Donald Trump is not in office and there are many, many things that President Biden wants to do, witnesses would significantly prolong this trial. And you have a lot of compelling evidence from the public record, from video of the scene itself, of the rally, of social media, parlor videos of the protesters marching. So in many respects, you don't really need witnesses. I was struck by the reporting by NBC News tonight at how unprepared Donald Trump's lawyers seem to be. The only defense they have is the one that the Republican senators have already teed up for them with that 55-45 vote last week. And there seems to be no other substantive defense. They don't seem to know who's making presentations. Someone apparently is gathering a list of potential witnesses together. They have a brief in response to the House's 80-page brief due Monday. They are then going to have to make a presentation. They don't seem well prepared to me. But they're smart in the sense that they're just picking up on where the Republican senators were, and they'll try to ride that, I think, incorrect legal argument, but cognizable legal argument all the way to an acquittal.
Yeah. Dan Goldman, it's always like the old joke about, the Supreme Court, can you count to five? Like, it's just a question of whether they can count enough Republican no votes, and they probably can, though we'll see. Dan Goldman, thanks for being with me tonight.
Thank you.
Coming up, Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin, what she learned in the first hearing on domestic terror since the attack on the Capitol. She joins me next.
From plants like wonderful pistachios. Sound crazy? So was seeing the first mascot in the 30s.
I'm Buster the Beaver. It's a giant monster beaver!
Scared the shells out of them. Plant protein from wonderful pistachios.
We need to reduce plastic waste in the environment.
That's why at America's beverage companies, our bottles are made to be remade.
Not all plastic is the same.
We're carefully designing our bottles to be 100% recyclable, including the caps.
They're collected and separated from other plastics,
so they can be turned back into material that we use to make new bottles.
That completes the circle and reduces plastic waste.
Please help us get every bottle back.
Alana is very, very, very energetic. I, of course, any mom would call her an angel. Alana was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it's cancer. There's nothing that I can do to make any of this better. I have to turn over all of my control to the doctors at St. Jude and pray that they're able to fix it.
For just $19 a month, you'll help us continue the life-saving research and treatment these kids need. Join with your debit or credit card right now, and we'll send you this St. Jude t-shirt.
When we got over here is when I realized that, no, you're not going to get a bill for anything. They're saying we're going to help save her. We're not going to charge you anything. This is what we do.
Because people like you donate $19 a month, families never receive a bill from St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing, or food. Because all a family should worry about is helping their child live.
Alana has been out of treatment since December. We had her final CAT scan that revealed that there was no signs of cancer, which is awesome. My baby is going to be able to live.
St. Jude won't stop until no child dies from cancer. Go online or call now.
The energy's here. I need you to be ready.
Coming off of that bike, and we're gonna work that core.
Find that balance.
Nordic Track, the home of interactive personal training.
Don't waste your time and money at the chain store. They got the best auto parts, brake parts, suspension parts, and dealer parts too. The website's so easy to use. The lowest prices and fast delivery too. All the parts your car will ever need. All the savvy folks are buying parts at rockauto.com. All the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.